Hello, welcome to World History. My name is Dr. David Morton, and I'll be your instructor for the next 5 weeks. And I wanted to take this video to use as an opportunity both to introduce myself, introduce the course, and just give you a general outline of what we are expecting over the next roughly 5 weeks that we do have together. So, first, a little background about myself. I have a PhD at the University of Central Florida in text and technology. So my specialty technically is not history per se, although I do have accreditations in both historical faculty studies and also the study of world and American history. So because I have a slightly different background, this actually may work to your advantage. I tend to work more in a visual media capacity, meaning that in this course, especially, what we'll be taking a look at is how popular culture, documentary film, and various other forms of interactive media essentially shape both the image that we do have of the past and also our understanding of the present. Now, this course is especially fascinating and incredibly interesting because, in many ways, the questions that could be addressed are so vast and so broad and beyond anything that we could cover in 5 weeks. It's absolutely impossible to teach over 500 years of history in 5 weeks' time. So instead, what I've done is I've very carefully curated a course that is going to continually address one underlying question, and that is, how did we get to where we are today? And more important than that, too, how did the modern world, as we recognize it, come into being? And, well, roughly over the next 5 weeks, through five different thematic sections, we're going to take a look generally at that. I'd like to give you just a brief breakdown of the syllabus and what the course expectations are, how it's set up, and then maybe just give a small preview of what we do have in store for the next coming weeks. So, as I mentioned already, this is World History since 1500. We'll be meeting online this semester, and what I will be doing over the course of roughly the next 5 weeks is uploading a series of videos, upwards of 60 altogether, each about 15 minutes in length, that are going to take on a different historical topic and a different theme. Now, as you can see here from the course syllabus, essentially what we're doing is gradually working our way into the present. I likely won't get as far as, well, our current present day moment, as historical and important as it is. But instead, I typically try to leave off in and around the collapse of the Berlin Wall and the recentering of the global economies in and around the year 1989. That said, too, I also don't start this course in the year 1500. As you'll see in a moment, I feel that perhaps the best point to start actually is roughly about in the 13th century, both in Europe and in Asia, where we start to see the first major collision of global civilizations. And then very rapidly, we'll pick up onto the age of exploration and essentially how we really end up only having a world history starting in and around the year 1500. So that's the general overview of what the course itself is looking for. Again, the themes are going to range from exploration to the impact of imperialism, colonization, the world wars, and essentially how we have this very strongly competing global dynamic in the present day. So, in terms of course requirements or materials, we do have two textbooks that you will be assigned. One, Western Civilizations, Their History and Culture, Volume 2, and Worlds Together, Worlds Apart, From the Beginnings of Humankind to the Present. Now, both of these texts are going to be intermittently used in our lectures as a way of just helping to supplement some of the overall visual material and also the content of the lectures. Now, again, as a history course, what we are essentially trying to do is understand both the decisions that made our present day world possible, especially now we're in this time of such dramatic change and upheaval caused by the COVID-19 crisis. Well, we're living through history. I mean, and getting some examples of the decisions that are being made right here and right now can also find, well, its own historical precedent and parallel in taking a look at, well, examples from the past. So I have a pretty broad selection of different topics and goals that I do want you to take on. Everything from understanding the emergence, politics, economics, social structures, culture, all that's going to be touched on. Again, how to interpret the main sources that we receive historical facts from, either the artifacts directly left behind by individuals, either by their journals, archaeological evidence, or elsewise, and the interpretations that historians do provide for them. From that, too, what we'll try to do is give you some competing viewpoints and points of view on overall historical content and context. So, knowing that history is not a stagnant, dead, and fixed thing, but instead it's something that is always changing. And in fact, our interpretation and our understanding of events and the world that we are in has systematically and fundamentally changed over time. From that, then, too, I had some pretty straightforward goals in terms of what we are looking for in this. So, first and foremost is this notion of chronology. So, knowing how events happen in sequence. I won't be a major stickler for dates in this course as much as I will be a stickler for how we got to where we are. So, understanding how the American invasion of Cuba in the year 1898 led to Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, is far more important than understanding just in and of itself that Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941. So that element of context is going to be one key part of it. In addition to, we're going to, of course, address major figures, major events, movements, and then the key thing is addressing critical interpretations, building your own viewpoint. Depending on the number of students we end up having in this course, I hope to have just as many different opinions, points of view, and perspectives on these major historical topics. Now, just a couple technical details. Typically speaking, well, since this is a online course, it's not going to necessarily gauge in terms of attendance as we would in a face-to-face course, but I am expecting regular updates, regular engagement with the course material, and if for any reason you end up falling behind, contact with me is essential. I really can't help you much if you only reach out to me in week 5 after falling behind for 2 straight weeks on course material and course content. So I do ask to be as proactive and immediate and direct as you possibly can. In terms of grading, it's a pretty straightforward course in terms of what we're going to be looking for. We'll have 5 different writing assignments, which I'll break down the rubric in a moment, and then 5 different exams. So each of these exams are going to culminate at the end of each of our weekly sections. So we'll have a series of roughly 4 different videos that are going to address a major topic and theme of a historical moment. And then I'll have a quiz that is going to take on those questions. So all in all, I mean, it's pretty straightforward in what we're going to be looking for. Um, in terms of the writing assignments, at the end of each week, we'll have a 1-page, really roughly 1 to 2 page, I would say anywhere between 500 to 750 words, double spaced, is my overall goal, where I'll be assigning either some material from the textbook or a roughly 45 to 60-minute length documentary film or other general theme. And then from there, you're going to write your own interpretation of it. I'll get more into the specifics of the assignment when the first assignment is given. But generally speaking, my rubric provided here more or less just accounts for the fact that you are engaging in the topic, that you're building your own historical argument, and that you're not just passively engaging or describing information, but instead building on the information that you have and then developing your own overall impression of a historical topic and event. In terms of the section exams, roughly the same principle applies. I'll have a series of 10 questions. So, again, each exam is worth 10% of your grade. You could argue that one question is 1% of your grade. And each of these are going to more or less just make sure that you've been following along with the lectures and that you have developed a broader understanding of some of the key ideas and aspects that we've been discussing. In total, the course operates on a point certain system. So as long as you complete the 5 writing assignments and the 5 exams and your points add up to at least 90 out of 100, you're more or less locked in for an A, and then your grades are going to systematically go down from that point on. Now, in terms of the overall course outline, keep in mind this may be subject to change, but I do want to give you at least like a little bit of an idea of the overall arc of what we're going to be covering over the next 5 weeks. As I mentioned, our key underlying theme is how do we get to where we are today? Well, the best place to start then is to begin by taking a look, well, right here at home in Asia, taking a look at the civilizations both within the Yuan dynasty, Genghis Khan's campaign of expansion that begins in the 13th century, which in many ways ends up for the first time, perhaps in the whole of world history, building an empire that straddles 3 different continents, that ends up building essentially a collision of cultures that culminates in essentially the interconnectivity of the entire Earth. So starting there, but then also taking a telescopic and a microscopic view of certain moments that happen periodically, roughly from this interconnection. So our first section will take a look at roughly the kingdom of Akbar the Great and the Mughal Empire, a inheritor empire of Genghis Khan and his kingdom, all the way on through to what's happening in Japan, China, and then from there we're going to move to Africa, take a look at some of the great African civilizations, how the age of exploration prior to coming to North and South America first arrives in the coast of Africa, and how it ultimately shapes our understanding of the known world before Columbus. And then lastly, we'll take a look into that showdown between Western civilizations and the civilizations of North and South America. We'll also take a look at the explorations of Admiral Zheng He. We'll ask that question, why does the Western Hemisphere end up colonizing and conquering North and South America as opposed to the Eastern? And in doing so, we'll get a bit more of a sense of how the world as we recognize it came into being. The second section is going to build on that and take a look at how national independence movements start to build in these various nation states. And much of it can be traced even before, say, the American Revolution or the Great Revolutions of Europe and China in the 19th century. So the best place to start is with roughly the Protestant Reformation, how the introduction of print and gunpowder fundamentally ends up shifting our understanding of the world and its overall setup. And then from there, we'll take a look at various social upheavals, both in Europe and in North and South America, that culminate in the American and French revolutions. And then lastly, we'll take a look at the proliferation of slavery across the world at roughly the same period of time. So hopefully by now you're starting to see how we have this upward trend, but we're also using just different selective themes and ideas as we do go along. So by the 3rd week, we'll be looking at, again, a overview of global cultures and civilizations in this final scramble for imperialism and interconnectivity. And then from there, we're going to build into the civilization-wide revolutions that begin with communist insurgencies, starting with the Paris Commune in the 1870s, and then ultimately how the First World War is going to fundamentally reshape all dynamics of global politics for all time. We'll get into World War II, its consequences, and how the onset of the Cold War ended up basically starting to push us closer and closer to a world that we are beginning to recognize, and then culminating, of course, with, as I had mentioned, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, a reassertion of a new global order, and well, some key questions that we're going to address for today. So, with that all in mind, what I want to do briefly is take you over into our first section module just to get an idea of how the PowerPoints are going to be set up, what the course expectations are, and then from there we'll go a little bit more deeper into its overall context and content. So let me just start by moving on to our first PowerPoint. And as I mentioned, really, in my opinion, modern world history begins with what I consider to be the Great Disturbance, or the arrival of Genghis Khan on the scene, and how this effectively ends up bringing about the first massive collision of global civilizations. What we're going to do is, in that section, take a look both at the impact of the Mongol Empire, and then ultimately how the onset of the Yuan dynasty ended up building into this new global dynamic. From there, we're going to also then move on to India, the expansion of Islam in India, and then from there too, just different aspects of its overall culture and history. We'll take a look at Japan, the Heian period, and the Khmer Empire. So again, we're not telling the entire history of Asia, roughly from the 12th century, 13th century onto the present day, but through these different little case studies, you'll get some ideas of some overall arcs and trends. From there too, what I try to do is intertwine video clips, so it won't just be me talking the entire time. And in fact, I do have a sample that I do want to apply just to begin to wrap up for this brief overview for today. So when we get to the end of our collision of cultures section, I do want to at least give you an idea of a living primary source or reenactment of what it would look like when different civilizations do collide. Now, of course, there is no one alive from the age of exploration to directly tell us about their experiences. They do leave journals, there is extant records and historical interpretations, but I feel like culture is also a really good starting point for this. One of the clips I want to share with you, just to get us started, is a clip from William Shakespeare's Tempest. Now, understand that Shakespeare was a contemporary of Christopher Columbus, of the various other major explorers that we are going to be talking about, and the play of The Tempest actually ends up trying to take on a very Euro-focused point of view on this collision of cultures. So what I have here, and this is a good way to just get an idea of how our dynamic is going to play, is a brief clip from The Tempest, where two of the featured characters, Stefano and Trinculo, have now just been shipwrecked on an island, and they're about to come into contact with a native of the island. So I'll jump right to the clip. You won't hear me talk. I'm just going to fade into the background for a moment. And as you watch it, what I want you to do is pay attention to their dynamic. Just how the three individuals interact with one another. And then from there, we'll pick apart just certain key aspects of how our understanding of history and the past can be shaped effectively by taking a look at this particular moment. So what I want to do is I'll jump ahead to this next clip. And I'll play it.
Thou art very Trinculo indeed. How camest thou to be the siege of this moon calf? Can he ent Trinculo?
I took him to be killed with a thunderstroke, but art thou not drowned, Stefano? Hid me under the dead moon calf's gabardine for fear of the storm. And art thou living, Stefano? Stefano too, Neapolitan skate!
Really? Do not turn me about. My stomach is not constant.
Must be fine things, and if there be no sprites, that's a brave god and bears celestial liquor. I will kneel to him.
How didst thou escape? How camest hither? Swear by this bottle how thou camest hither. I escaped upon a butter sack which the sailors heaved o'erboard.
I'll swear upon that bottle to be thy true subject, for the liquor is not earthly.
Yeah, swear by this bottle how thou escapest.
Swum ashore, man, like a duck. I can swim like a duck, I'll be sworn.
Yeah, kiss the book.
Mm. Mm.
Though thou canst swim like a duck, thou art made like a goose.
Mm. Oh, Stefano, is there any more of this?
The whole butt, man. Now, moon calf, how does thine ague?
Hast thou not dropped from heaven?
Out of the moon, I do assure thee. I was the man in the moon when time was.
I have seen thee in her, and I do adore thee.
Come, swear to that. Kiss the book. Swear.
By this good light, this is a very shallow monster. I have feared of him. A very weak monster. The man in the moon, a most poor, credulous monster.
I'll show thee every fertile inch of the island, and I will kiss thy foot. I prithee, be my good.
Okay, so I think you get a little bit of an idea of just the dynamic at play in this clip. That the two Europeans are disoriented, unsure where they are, and then there's this native inhabitant who is more or less convinced that these two drunkards, if you will, are gods. And as you can see, they don't really downplay it, do they? They go right along with it. And what's his promise in the end? Well, he'll worship them and show them every fertile inch of that island. This is a metaphor in many ways for how Europeans viewed essentially the landscape of North and South America at the time of first contact. That if Native people are there, their sole and only purpose is to essentially exist as slaves to them and to help them in establishing their own sense of civilization or their idea of what civilization is. Shakespeare is, well, just as complicit in it. Now, did The Tempest introduce this concept? Absolutely not. But at the same time, it is a mirror into the world that Shakespeare lives in, is writing in, and reacting to. So anyway, this is just a little bit of a sample of what we do have in store over the next 5 weeks. I do thank you for listening to me and bearing with this very broad overview of the course. And well, I look forward to meeting you all online virtually over the next few weeks. All right, thank you very much.